So is Nico to UCLA happening or what?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever it's your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, so go check it out on FanDuel.com. Here we go. This is where we get started. UCLA is in contact. They're trying to figure out a way to potentially make the Nico situation work. Whether the optics are bad, whether the negotiations are bad, there is a working, I don't know if working relationship would be the right word, but they're attempting to go after Nico. All right. I feel like I've already come out and said this is, maybe not the right move, maybe not so firm. I've been on Locked On College Football. On the next Locked On Big Ten Squad, I encourage you to go watch and listen. We get into UCLA's win over under and wins. We talk about Nico to UCLA or wherever. Every single time I'm going to come out and be firm on this podcast and say this is not a good idea. Not a good idea for UCLA to go after Nico. There's no way where it would be a good idea. It would be entertaining. I would love to talk about it. And from a perspective of entertainment, I think it'd be great for UCLA to get it. For anything else, I don't think how this works. What would make sense about him coming to UCLA, going from a playoff contender, coming to the Bruins, where their over-under win-loss total, the win total is about 4.5, right? That's a team that he's going to come to, and you think he's going to be happy right away? DeShaun Foster's trying to build a UCLA culture, rebuild it, reestablish it at the Rose Bowl with the fan base, with an NIL collective that right now, if you're looking at either 24/7 Sports Matt Zenitz, if you're looking at Pete Nakos' On 3 reports, you can really try and figure out what's going on. Read between the lines. A $4 million price tag. He wasn't even worth to begin with at the $2.5 million range at Tennessee. Let's be honest. Now, there's development. There's hope that in his second full year playing, that he would develop and blossom at Tennessee in this system, right? A team that made it to the playoff, that broke through, could do even more. But sometimes, be careful what you wish for. And if UCLA actually follows through with this, you're probably saying, they're like, man, didn't we learn our story with the Madden negotiations? That's Nico Iamaleava's little brother, where you're like, okay, they tried it with this same brass of sorts, this same team of trying to negotiate. And all of a sudden, you had Madden, who I believe his father already admitted to 27 Sports. They committed to Arkansas and didn't even visit Arkansas. And you're trying to negotiate with a brother who's commanding more volatility in this situation. Pete Nakos says UCLA remains interested, but they are not going up to that price tag. I don't even know if they're going to go up to $2.5 million. I haven't read the full report, but this is what Nakos is reporting about Nico. They're interested, just not up to the $4 million price range. Nobody in college football is interested at that price range, and I don't think anybody, not even Tennessee, would go back to $2.5 million. Now, maybe UCLA is desperate enough at this point. Maybe they don't like what they've seen from Joey Aguilar at spring practice. Maybe they want some semblance of a future quarterback, which there's no guarantee that Nico would stay beyond this year. There is not. There's no guarantee he would stick it throughout the rest of the season, or any quarterback for that matter, as the spring transfer portal window is open. All right, you've got guys from Cal already committed to the SEC, like Jaden Knock going to Oklahoma. You're telling me that Nico, in the first chance, wouldn't play a year and then go back to the SEC, go elsewhere after a decent year? I just don't think that this is a great fit. And looking at Matt Zenitz's report from 24/7 Sports, it doesn't seem like they're anywhere close to a deal, all right? And if UCLA is supposedly the fallback option, if you talk about what On 3 reporting, how they already don't trust UCLA, is not in the best of working relationships with the negotiating team, with the whatever agency, whatever is representing Nico, which would be obviously what's reported, the idea of the father, his team, whatever it might be. I just don't see how you could, in good faith, believe that this is working out, that they're not trying to work out some backdoor deal. Nico went into the transfer portal. That is official with a do not contact tag. Interesting. It looks like UCLA and Nico are trying to negotiate. And what they're fighting is not another school. What they're fighting is themselves, desperation, and greed at this point. And greed isn't on UCLA's side. Maybe not full greed. This is not all on Nico. It is not all on the kid. But this is the stance that all of college football has decided to take. The eye is not bigger than the team when you're asking for a ludicrous amount of money at the NIL spot where you're like, that's ridiculous. I don't think some of these quarterbacks are worth the amount of money they're getting paid beyond Nico at some spots. There are some players that are not worth the millions of dollars they're making in NIL. That's just my perspective. They're making too much money right now. You shouldn't be making more than a veteran's minimum at the NFL level while you're an 18, 19-year-old. That's just not my thought. As much as they make a lot of money in college football, they should benefit. They should not be mega millionaires as a youngster with all the people that could influence them, that could still influence them to make good, bad, dumb decisions in this case and see how this Nico situation is played out. So the Bruins aren't seemingly close, and they should not get closer. They should not raise the offer, which is well below the $4 million, hopefully well below the $2.5 million. And I know there have been some reports that if the number comes lower, that they might throw in an offer to Nico. Even though there's a do not contact tag, there's ways to work around that. I just hope UCLA doesn't actually go through with this. I really do. If he does come, support the kid, be interesting. I just don't know how that flies in the locker room after you've somewhat committed to Joey Aguilar, at least giving him a shot at the starting job for a year. You've got a bunch of quarterbacks on the roster. What UCLA should go be looking at is an offensive lineman or two. Go look at another defensive player or two. There is talent in the portal. They can spread out the money without having to give it to Nico specifically, which I'm not sure if it'll move the needle for them to turn into an Indiana. Well, who says Joey Aguilar can't do the same? I know he's one of the lowest rated quarterbacks in the Big Ten in terms of expected starting quarterbacks in the Big Ten Conference. Latest report I saw from a college football report, I talked about this on the last Locked On UCLA episode, he's rated like 17th out of 18. Now, I think a lot of people are down on the Bruins, including that over under 4.5 wins. I think UCLA should certainly get close to moving past that number with the low expectations placed on DeShaun Foster and company this year. But there's a world to believe that even if you go after Nico, you can still fall short of expectations with all about the eyes, the national spotlight, if he comes to the Rose Bowl. That's where I sit in this situation. We'll have to live with it if they actually offer it up. And if Nico takes a bargain, I don't know how that remains to be seen. But where else is this kid going to go? Like, well, I don't understand why UCLA would be like, hey, let's go after this. It's one thing to beef up your efforts to attempt to go after Dante Moore after like a DTR left. I think that's respectable with what they did 2 years ago. It missed. They had to go after a late season off-season hire for an offensive coordinator. They went after Eric Bieniemy. Nothing wrong with going after Eric Bieniemy that late in the coaching cycle, okay, especially at the OC spot. He was put in a tough spot, and he did not perform. Eric Bieniemy did at the offensive coordinator spot. But this, another late offseason switcheroo, right? Trying to, let's flip this kid from a quarterback or go get a quote. What about the middle of spring practice proves that you get a guy like this, and you're like, he's going to come in and immediately be ready to go, SoCal native or what, and prove that it's good. Bargain deal, even at $1 million, I would be, with the way the situation's played out, it would have to be more than just, okay, he's knowing what he's doing. You'd have to get complete release from his team, like, hey, we're done making decisions. It's ridiculous. I think Josh Pate already posted something like his own team, close sources to the Nico situation. Like, yeah, we didn't do anything wrong. And that's the problem. That is why UCLA should not go after a deal. They've already been burned by Madden. It feels just like fool's gold. Yes, to get the older, better version of him who played on a playoff team, but try and negotiate in good faith with this team. The deal doesn't seem close from the On3 and 24/7 Sports reporting from Matt Zenitz to Pete Nakos. That could change. UCLA's interested. I just think they should cut all ties and be like, sorry, bro, we ain't about it. But I'll be here talking about it If it does change, doesn't mean that they're not interested, but they should not be. They should not be. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Just like the rest of college football has been putting up a stance, I think we should, as a UCLA fan base, hope that this does not happen. Doesn't mean that it wouldn't improve, it wouldn't on the talent, but at some point, when does talent versus cohesion, chemistry affect everything in the locker room? I don't know. All right, it's time to talk about FanDuel because the NBA playoffs are almost here. FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. You can check out FanDuel because betting is made so easy with FanDuel. Whether you pick your favorite team, you dive into the player props, think about three-pointers made, steals, assists. FanDuel has many ways to bet on your favorite player props, and you can combine them after the game tips off for a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. It's going to do it for us here in this shortened edition of Locked On UCLA today. UCLA to Nico, will it happen? Doesn't seem likely, but crazier things have happened. The portal's open, and we know when the transfer portal is open, anything is literally possible. They're interested. I don't know how much. They're not budging. The relationship's a unique situation with what already transpired earlier in this recruiting cycle. I just don't believe UCLA should go after it, nor do I think it will be done. That is not like a knowledgeable situation. This seems like common sense. Why are we going after this? It'll be entertaining. If he comes, entertainment 101. But until then, I just don't see how it should play out the way it is. And until next time, we'll talk more UCLA basketball. What does McCronen's situation look like heading into next year? Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.